Hi friends, welcome back. So Professor Alan Lichtman, who has a presidential election prediction model, is predicting that Kamala Harris will win the presidential election. I want to go over what his sort of model is, why he thinks these things, and how things could possibly change. He calls this things the 13 keys, and we'll go through each one of these. And we'll start with this, midterm gains. So actually the Democrats lost House seats, so that would favor the Republicans, or would favor Trump, okay? Incumbency. I'm sure you guys know Biden dropped out. So right now, basically, they don't have an incumbency at all. And essentially, this is the point of view of the White House. And so since Biden dropped out, you can't really count Kamala Harris as the incumbent. So that we'll say that that gives advantage to Trump. From the incumbency or the White House perspective, there wasn't really a contest at the primaries, right? So no one's like, hey, I don't want Kamala Harris to be our candidate. And basically the Democrats rally behind her. So that favors Harris, okay? Third party, there's not really any substantial third party. RFK has dropped out. So that also favors Harris, all right? Short-term economy. This is an interesting one because essentially, and I've said this so many times on the channel, it depends who you ask, right? You ask some people who just lost their job, they're like, "Oh my God, the economy's terrible. I hate the current, administration. Get them out, get new people." But I'm saying, but it depends on your point of view. But according to Professor Lichtman, he's saying the short-term economy still looks good, and given actually, whoops, not that one, given the advantage to Harris. In terms of policy change, right? Have there been any sort of like big policies that are positive or negative? So sort of like what's the net result of the current incumbent? So that would actually favor Harris. You could pick any number of policies, right? And again, this is all his opinion on his model. He's been accurate 9 out of 10 times, but I could see people say, no, I hate this particular policy from Biden. I don't like what he did there. And therefore, there's no way he could win this category. But at least according to Professor Lichtman, he's given the policy advantage to Harris. Social unrest, right? Are there people, around the country protesting all day, every day? Does things feel to be unsettled? That kind of stuff. The answer would be no. We do have protests, but not necessarily like all day, every day, and everyone's angry all the time. So it's not like that. So that would give the advantage to Harris. White House scandal. Now, I know the Republicans have been trying to go with Hunter Biden stuff for a long time. They keep trying that. And actually, in fact, Hunter Biden did, and this is the president's son, did plead guilty to a tax situation. I think he pleaded guilty maybe, or I don't know, I can't remember. I just don't remember maybe we'll say, I think it was a guilty verdict on like some sort of gun thing. But is that tied, directly to the president himself? No. And so that would be a favor of Harris. Now, I know that Republicans would disagree. They say, what about Biden's, President Biden's, blah, 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 blah. So far, there's been real big scandal. And that's an interesting one because it depends on your point of view on that one. Incumbent charisma. So, guys, I pointed this out before when I first saw Harris in the debates. I'll be honest with you, because when she ran for president, I'll be honest with you, I didn't think it was a very good performance. it just wasn't. And evidently, Lichtman actually agrees. Now, it's interesting, though, and you could argue this one either way, but I think like I said, I think it's an interesting one because, like I said, you could argue either way, because I think definitely the Harris today is different than the Harris of, the last debate. However, he is actually giving this one to Trump, saying that Harris's charisma is just not that great and not necessarily like one in a generation kind of person. However, this is an interesting one as well, the challenger charisma. So this actually would benefit Harris. So it is true there are some people who are fervently in love with the Donald. But the problem is we all know who he is, right? So you either like him or you don't like him. And he's not necessarily going to convince any new people to like him, right? And actually, it's interesting because the Donald Trump situation, it's actually similar to the Hillary Clinton situation. So, for example, when Hillary Clinton ran, I think that was 2016 already. The problem is that we all know who she is. So, like, you either like her or you don't like her, and it's really hard to, convince anyone to really change their mind on that. So, in my opinion, I always thought she was a bad candidate because she didn't have enough upside. And I feel the same thing about like something like a Trump or even say like a Biden. They just don't have a ton of upside, right? We already know who you are. How can you possibly convince more people? Even though Harris's charisma is, how can I say, not once in a generation kind of thing, I'll just say this though, she's definitely surprised me. And with the pick a Walsh, I've noticed a major change in their campaign. So I think a couple of these you could certainly debate that kind of stuff, but I think it's interesting to talk about. A long-term economy, the professor also rates the advantage to Harris. Basically, he's saying here that the economy, short-term and long-term, still appear to be strong. And these are the points. If you want to talk about foreign policy failure or foreign policy success, the argument that the professor would make is that the jury's still out on those things. However, there are 13 keys here, right? And so far, Harris has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I guess essentially he was watching, all of his indicators and said, okay, she's positive on 8 of them. I'm going to go ahead and call we'll just say, I'm going to go ahead and predict that Kamala Harris will win. Now, some of this stuff could change. He doesn't think so. He says, come next month, no changes, etc. My personal opinion on this stuff is I think the debate will be really, really interesting. I think it's like a couple of days from now. I want to say it's September 10th. You guys correct me wrong, but I think it's like a couple of days from now. I'm going to watch it. I don't know about you. I'll watch it and I'll give you guys an honest opinion on that stuff. So some of these you can't change. Like you can't change, midterm games. That's not going to be a thing. You can't change, the incumbency thing. You can't change the primary thing. Third party thing you can't change. Could the economy take this massive dive in 1 or 2 months that could change the election? So the thing is, guys, we track the stock market, okay? But for the average person or the average American, they might not necessarily have any assets at all, right? They know the stock market exists, but they don't really have enough money in there to really see it. So, would everyone lose their jobs of this, for example? Would everyone lose their jobs all of a sudden, monkeypox becomes a real thing? I mean, who knows? Or mpox, I guess never call it now. Who knows, right? Anything can happen. But I think the odds of that is very, very slim. Long-term economy, that would also too, that probably wouldn't change anytime soon. Policy change, I'm just saying, what could possibly change in this model? Policy change, I don't think they're going to introduce anything particularly new that would be a big enough change to really either piss off enough people in the next, month or so. Social unrest, theoretically, you could have crazy protests in the final couple of weeks going in, but you'd have to have protests against Harris, and who's going to do that? So that's a question I'd pose. Maybe the Trump people come with some sort of thing. Can anyone change the charisma, outlook? For me, my personal opinion on this stuff is I think Harris has more upside because she's more of an unknown than Trump is. We know who Trump is, so how much more upside can he get? Do you guys see what I'm saying here? Usually when you talk about this election stuff is if you don't have a lot of upside, meaning that you can't convince a bunch of undecided voters or independents to come vote for you, then you got to make sure that you're solidifying the base. And so that's sort of when they look at any of the data coming out recently, Harris has been campaign fundraising like crazy, setting records, all kind of stuff. So that's a pretty clear indicator that they're doing well. Trump is struggling, and Trump is this is just what it is. He's lately been selling NFTs, trying to get you to buy the Trump. It's like Trump in a superhero cape, or Trump in I think there was another one. It was holding a Bitcoin. I showed this before on the channel, but it's kind of ridiculous stuff. Foresee policy failures or successes, right? So I don't think. Okay, I'll say here. Let's put it this way. Theoretically, there could be a massive success for the Biden people. Like I say, theoretically, maybe they get this great peace deal the next month or so. I think the chance of that is really slim. And a peace deal, be it say with Ukraine and Russia, or a peace deal with in Israel, I think the chance of that is slim myself. Everyone knows elections happening, right? So there may be sort of a cooling off period at this moment. Could there be a massive failure? I think that would be a theoretical situation where it could be a massive, foreign policy failure, and then Trump can say, see, it's all that person's fault. It's all that person's fault. But the problem is that, and this is the thing that you would have to do is you would have to tie whatever Biden does, tie it directly to Harris. So that's something they would need to do. One thing that I think that, and this is just as you're the challenger, being Trump being the challenger, because remember, a lot of these things you can't change, or you can try, is you can try to pin some sort of crazy scandal on the White House, right? The Republicans have been trying that forever with the whole Hunter Biden stuff. Now, does the Hunter Biden stuff, does that resonate with just regular voters, or does that only resonate with, something like your base, right? And that's a question I would pose to you. And again, this all depends who you ask these kind of things. We all remember certain things. So I'll just give you an example. I lived through the Bill Clinton years. We all know about the Monica Lewinsky stuff. Like, it's not like a single person that wouldn't know. In my opinion, the Monica Lewinsky thing was a, like, how can I say, more headline grabbing than the Hunter Biden thing. And for those of you who are old enough to live with that, I'd like to hear your opinion on that one. Which one do you think was the kind of the bigger thing that we all know about? I think and that's one kind of interesting question, which was the bigger scandal or thing that you remember, the whole Trump and the porn star, the Stormy Daniels stuff, right? Or Clinton and the Monica Lewinsky stuff. But there's different types of scandals. Like with the Trump one, you have like countless scandals. So you got the whole real estate inflation thing. You got holding of the documents. You also have the January 6th stuff like that. And so, it's yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into all that stuff. But the thing is, like, when I'm looking at these things, it's like, okay, how much could you possibly change to get Trump? I think the only real chance right now, if you go with this model only, is that Trump does really, really well in the debates and Harris looks like a complete moron, which you never know. In debates, guys, you never know. I mean, I personally didn't think that, because I said it before so many times, that Harris would have to pull a rabbit out of the hat. I didn't think it was going to be like this. I didn't, where she would, come in and just be fundraising like mad and, doing all sorts of, basically filling the house everywhere and just really, really had a good campaign so far. It's not over yet, though. And the professor says the same thing I'll tell you. Go out and vote for the candidate that you like and get out and vote. I'll have my opinions. You can have yours. But at the end of the day, express yourself with your vote. And I think that's the best way to celebrate democracy. And I mean that in all sincerity. So I appreciate everyone's time. I'd like to hear your thoughts on any one of these things, especially do you think that, Trump could flip any of these categories? Because that's sort of, again, Alan Lichtman's model. But he's saying after he picks a winner or picks a prediction, that's who he sticks with. He has been wrong before, and that was in the Gore-Bush election. So he can be wrong. And this is an election. You never know what happens. And that's why I say, when in doubt, just go vote. So do appreciate your time, everyone. And I'll catch you on the next video.